So the meeting is now live, Chair. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Bordar Pawb, croeso I gyfarfod. Welcome to everybody on this lovely sunny morning to the People Services Committee. As you possibly recall, there was two sections to this committee, two very important sections actually, one on human resources and the other on member services, and we tend to alternate where they sit on the agenda. So if I can introduce myself, I'm Julie James, Welsh Government Member, and I chair this meeting, ably assisted by Councillor Di Clements, the Chair of the Authority. And I'd like to welcome the following elected members. Councillor, I was just about to say Maureen Bowen, but she's not quite with us yet. So Councillor Claire George, Councillor Vanessa Thomas, and Councillor Chris Williams. And at the moment, we don't have two other Welsh Government members with us, Mrs Sarah Hoss and Dr Rosie Plummer. Rosie has actually tendered her apologies. She has her last NRW meeting in Bangor this morning. Also in attendance, we have Tegwyn Jones, our Chief Executive, Joy Arkley, Head of People Services and Health and Safety, and Caroline, it just says Officer Caroline, but you know, a Supremo Officer in charge of us all, making sure we get to the right meetings at the right time and that we stay relatively in order. And to Georgia, who ably assists her. Oh, and Chris, your camera's working. Well, that's a bit of a shock, but never mind. No, apologies, it's not. And you're looking very well indeed. Good. Okay, so apart from Rosie, are there any apologies for absence, Caroline?
I've not received any others, Chair. Okay. I'm not sure if Georgia has. She's
no, I'm the same as you.
Minuting this morning. So.
I'm the same as you, Caroline. Just Rosie Plummer, thank you.
Thank you. So any disclosures of interest from any member that's present today? Lots of shaking heads. No? Okay. Thank you very much indeed. So we move on to confirm the minutes of the People Services Committee held on the 15th of January. That seems quite a while ago now. I'll just go through them for accuracy, page by page, and then I'll return to them for any matters arising that aren't on the action sheet. So page 1, which is page 13 in your pack. No, and page 2, which is page 14 in your pack. No, okay. So then any matters arising that aren't on the, oh, there's a page 3, sorry. Where am I? Yes, right. Totally disorganised this morning. No, nothing on page 3. So any matters arising that aren't on the action list which follows? No, I've just got one, if I may. The last item at our meeting, it was reported that data protection and cyber security training attendance was lower because those particular modules are on a separate system. And the IT team were working on that to try and get them all on the same training system. Just wondered if that has been achieved at all. Caroline, Tegwyn. Last item on page 3 of the minutes.
Chair, I can advise that it hasn't yet been possible to do that, but officers continue to work on that. They are working on that. It is an active action.
Lovely. Okay, and then if we can add that to our action list, which I'll turn to now and throw that open to members. Firstly, if there's anything that they want to query. Obviously the first one and the last one are completed, and so anything on any progress on planning at all? Oh, what's happened to my camera? Oh, right. Di, yes.
Thanks, Chair. it says a review of mandatory training is ongoing. What are we actually, what are we reviewing? What are we trying to accomplish on that? Because obviously we've got the planning and sexual harassment one. So is there the thought processes that we will need to increase on, or what subjects? How are we looking at it, I suppose? Thank you.
Thanks, Di. Over to you, Joy. And this is, I understand, just for members.
We're looking to reduce the number of mandatory courses because we think that some that have been made mandatory are excessive. So and that applies to staff as well. So some of the health and safety courses, and particularly if they're every 12 months. So it's about making sure that we have the balance right, so that the things are mandatory should be mandatory, because there's a danger that you make too many things mandatory and it loses its impact. And also it's unnecessary because things don't change that regularly in some instances. Would be my understanding.
Yep, Di seems happy with that. Might it be possible for a future meeting, just in respect of members, to list what the mandatory training is for us to attend, so that we can keep a personal record, particularly I think for the new members that come on board? Tegwin and then Caroline. And sorry, oh, Maureen, welcome, lovely to see you. So I'll go to Tegwin first, then Maureen's hand was raised, and then Caroline. Tegwin, over to you.
Yeah, I seem to recall actually, and this can be slightly different to what Joy said, that this item came around because that there were certain areas like cybersecurity which we did think should be mandatory training for members. So while Joy's quite right that we need to review the staffing one, I think in 1 or 2 cases we probably do need to make mandatory training for members. So if the two are the sexual harassment and the planning ones, I think certainly cybersecurity one is a necessary one, notwithstanding the fact that the usual issue we have of some of you might have done it via PCC, and therefore we could cover them off. But I wouldn't want us to get into a long list of mandatory training, but you know, we're finding issues like data and cyber are just entirely new areas of work that are very, very significant, and people's understanding aren't that brilliant on them.
I agree. It's a real eye-opener when you do attend that sort of training. So thanks for that. And I'm sure Joy and Caroline will make a note. Caroline's hand has gone down because obviously she agrees with the comments that Tegwin has made. Over to you, Maureen.
Thank you, Julie. You asked my question. As a new member, what are the mandatory training courses that we should do? And if we had a list, perhaps we could suggest ones that we didn't need to do as well.
Thank you very much, Maureen. I'm sure Caroline has noted that, and something will be put out. So back to Joy. And oh no, Caroline's hand is down now. So back to Joy.
Thank you, Chair. We're starting to look at induction for members, and I think and as part of the review of induction in terms of what it includes and what it looks like, that will facilitate drawing up a list of mandatory training to encompass what we've already got, but also the IT cybersecurity courses that have already been mentioned. So and the idea is to get that in place because we will have some new members coming on board later this year. So that work has already begun. A member of my team is liaising with Caroline and others to look at induction across the organisation, but particularly with regard to members.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed for that, Joy. Okay, anything else on the action list at all? Thanks for drawing our attention to that, Di, at the beginning there. Right, okay, so then looking back at my notes, I didn't ask for somebody to move and second the minutes. Thank you, Di, moving the minutes and seconding. Thank you very much, Vanessa. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous for those that were present. Thank you. Apologies that I skipped over that. And I'm ticking off the action list. So now we come to the substantive part of the agenda. And this time we're picking up the member support and development update firstly, and then we move on to human resources. And oops, what happened there? Something flashed up on my screen, sorry about that. So thank you very much for your very comprehensive report, Caroline, which I know that we've all read in detail. So I'll throw it open to you for any brief update or introduction, and then out to members for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So beginning there with personal development reviews. Thank you very much to the Chair of the Authority, Councillor Clements, for sending out a little reminder to all members to ask them to complete their reviews, and that did prompt a number of people who have set things in motion, so that's good. But clearly we're still in the position that not able to prepare a training plan at this point, but we will hopefully bring that to you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
And the workshop plan there, as it stands at the moment, is appended. And obviously, yeah, the different workshops come up all the time, and you know that it's a bit of a work in progress, that document. No updates there. Training. I suppose the substantive bit of the report there is regarding the Welsh Government Commission Programme of Governance Assistance. Unfortunately, the attendance at yesterday's sessions wasn't any greater than on previous occasions, but I know some people were unable to attend, and I'm sure they will catch up with the training at some other point. But I would encourage all members who, if they've missed anything, that all the sessions can be found on the Tirweddau Cymru Landscapes Wales website. And if you need the password to access that, please just let me know.
Thanks, Caroline. On that, I've just got a note to ask you if you would circulate the password again to all members. I know Claire had difficulty joining, and maybe others experienced the same technical problems. I wasn't able to join, but I do want to sort of follow up on the recording. And then if you can ask members to confirm that they have seen the recording, because I know you don't record that as training, but nevertheless it does add to our record, if you like. So thank you for that. And also the governance handbook, I have to say, is really, really good. I didn't expect it to be that comprehensive, as I put out in my message. And there was quite, I loved the examples. I thought they were very appropriate. Di, thank you.
And just for members' interest, I met with Simon Pickering, Hugh Rees, and the chairs of the Welsh National Parks last week, and they're doing a project on reviewing arrangements for evaluating MPA member performance in Welsh MPA. So just quickly, the project overview is the project aims to review how the performance of members of Welsh National Park authorities is currently assessed, compare practices across the 3 MPAs, and to make suggestions as to how these can be improved to provide a consistent and rigorous accountability framework for Welsh MPAs in line with an Audit Wales recommendation. So we started stage 1 last week. We all put our input. I think, Caroline, you attended as well, didn't you, or not? No, that was something else. There's been a lot on this last week. Sorry. So that was quite interesting. So we'll just, I think the final bit of it will be, I think it'll be completed by August. So it's quite, yeah, they just wanted our views on sort of members, the difference between Welsh Government appointees, democratically elected members, etc. So that's just in the first stage of that project. So I'll keep you posted as and when. So just for your information, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Di. It's very interesting, and not before time. To be the first time they've ever done that, in my experience, since 2006. Will that be evaluating elected and Welsh Government members?
It's not. It's putting a framework into, I suppose. Well, this was the question really. It was assessing it was assessing currently what we have and what there might be a few issues with, so that something is more consistent across the board in future. I mean, it may not. Tegwin's going to come in now, so he may know have a bit more information. But it was just the start of it. It may be we decided to go on to stage 2. But whether it goes on any further than that, say, is yet to be seen. But it's just a piece of work there. I'll see what Tegwin's got to say through you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Di. Caroline's put her hand down because she was first, so we'll come to Tegwin.
Yeah, I'm careful what I say in a public meeting here, but yeah, we did. Carol and myself attended an initial meeting. This is one of the actions of the governance report that we were not tremendously happy with there. It's true to say that I think there's a slightly different issue in terms of concerns about members between the 3 national park authorities. And certainly our line was that this wasn't a massive issue there. And I think the aspiration of Welsh Government is there's a consistent framework across all of the 3 national parks for reviewing members, although we did push back slightly and ask, 12 of you are elected, 12 of you are appointed via the electoral system via PCC. We don't really have much of a mechanism for dealing with an issue if there is underperformance there. And it's quite interesting. I don't think there's an equivalent mechanism within local government there. So it is going to be an interesting exercise there. So and what the other point I was going to make is just to I get slightly undermined sometimes when I say things and I'm proved wrong. And one of my consistent arguments regarding the Welsh Government training is the fact that while members may not turn up, a number of them do follow up and look at the recordings and participate that way. And the feedback I got from that one from Welsh Government is they checked the numbers, and that was the case. The numbers looking back were very low. So, I would encourage members who can't attend to actually listen to the recordings there, because I'd hate for us to have a system created that wasn't really adding value because there wasn't a massive problem in the first place. And I think that's where our line was on that one. But we'll see how it evolves and how it develops.
Thanks, Tegwin. Very tactfully put. So Caroline, going back to you putting out a notice with the password for that training, can you emphasise that it is very, very important for those that couldn't attend, that have taken the effort to sit through the recordings, that they do let you know? Because anecdotally, I know from a number of members that they have sat through, and okay, they may skip a bit, but nevertheless they pick up the key items. So just to sort of back up what Tegwin has said to Welsh Government. So thank you for that. Back to Di and then Maureen.
So I've just found the project. So the stage 1 is a desktop-based exercise to assess and compare member appraisal arrangements across Welsh MPAs and a selection of Scottish and English MPAs. So I was quite interested, actually. I was quite pleased that they were going beyond Wales. I think that was quite important. So they're going to assess current arrangements, compare practice, and then identify areas for improvement. So that's stage 1. And say there's 3 stages. So stage 2 will be develop a potential new framework, identify implementation issues, and stage 3, I don't think they've really made up their mind on stage 3 yet. So we'll leave that one there. But that was just for information if you're interested. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Di. Yeah, I am interested. So if there's any paperwork forthcoming, that would be helpful to see during my remaining time with the authority. Maureen.
I'm going to show my ignorance now, but I'm looking at the list of training workshops. Let me just say, when you first become a councillor, it's death by seminar. And, you know, there really is a big load. And where the seminars are really interesting and it gives you a bigger knowledge, there is the mandatory training, which is completely separate. So looking at this list, I wouldn't have necessarily known what was training, and what was nice to know on your specific areas of the coast path that you're interested in. So it would be really nice if they were marked as training.
That's a really good, insightful comment, Maureen. Thank you very much. And it is the sort of thing that a relatively new member would notice that people like myself wouldn't do. So I'm really, really grateful that you've raised that. I know Caroline will pick that up and she'll make a note of that so that members can differentiate between what's nice to know and what really needs to be attended and understood. So thank you very much. Okay, so we've dealt with the Welsh Government. Member attendance, well, that speaks for itself, Caroline, and hopefully we can improve upon that. Declarations of interest, really welcome the simplification of that. So thank you very much for streamlining that. Anything else that you want to call out, Caroline, or any other member wants to raise?
The only other thing I was going to say, Chair, well, two things. The meeting that Councillor Clements was involved with, that is what is outlined in my final paragraph on page 10 of my report. That's a large paragraph. That is one and the same process. With regards to member attendance, it has increased. Training attendance has increased during the year. I think, as noted there, the low attendance at study tours, and particularly last summer's tour by the Grants Committee, I think probably what we will do this year is, while it will be open for any member to attend, we will only count attendance by the Grants Committee. Because
what a good point. Yes, because
generally member attendance on the whole is not bad, and it's not really properly reflected, I don't think, in that low below target figure, not in its entirety. Generally, most training is generally well attended. I have to say, with the exception of the Welsh Government training, but training organised by ourselves, by our offices, is generally well attended, and it's brought down by a couple of sessions, really.
Yeah, very good point. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by the way we've been recording it. So thank you very much for that. I think that's excellent going forward. Claire.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to add the potential future workshops. I'm really interested in the drone footage and technology, and I wondered if we could add to that something like the GIS mapping and layering, because I find that's really gives you a rich context to what's going on at different levels. And I would support Maureen if we had something around the purpose or the outcomes of the workshop. So is it to support governance? Is it to awareness raising? What is the purpose of that workshop, so we can be more targeted or understand what we're trying to get out of things? So thank you.
Thanks, Claire. I like that suggestion, and I'm sure Caroline has picked that up. That will be very, very helpful. Anything else at all under the fairly wide-ranging member support and development topic before I move on to HR? No. Okay, so we move on now to page 13 of the pack. Joy, your Human Resources Management Report, which, as you said before we came on board, is quite brief this time, and I know that we've read that in detail, and we'll come on to the metrics afterwards, but I'll throw it open to members, because I'm sure with the exception of pay and grading, which is still ongoing, which is difficult to report on, because final meeting, I think appeals meetings later this week. But let me throw it open to members for any questions for Joy. Claire.
Julie, I had a point of clarity. I didn't understand what red circled meant to me, so I just hope you could explain that to start off with. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. I'll hand over to Joy because my description might be a bit old-fashioned. So, Joy, if you would just, on the pay and grading, which is very important, and I've given you the heads up on some of the questions that Rosie's left with me, if you could just take us through the statistics for that, where we are with those that have been regraded and increased, red circled, and so on. Thank you.
Right. So the red circled posts are those posts where, as a result of pay and grading, the grade of the post is lower than the grade that they're on now, and that has an impact on their pay. So those posts that were red circled, all of the post holders appealed against the job evaluation result. Under the pay and grading policy, they have protected pay for a period of 3 years. They have full protection for year 1, and then in years 2 and 3, they have a percentage of the difference between the protected pay and the grade of the top of the grade of the post that their post is in. So all of the red circled posts were seen as a priority in terms of their appeals, and their appeals were concluded at the end of January. And then we had a few of people whose posts weren't red circled who appealed against the grade that they'd got, and those appeals will be concluded on Friday of this week. So the appeal process is in 2 stages. There's the informal stage, which is with me, where we sit and go through the job evaluation report against the job evaluation scheme to look to see where the information that was provided to the job analysts, where there are gaps. So inevitably, or invariably rather than inevitably, invariably what we've found throughout this process is that the information, the job descriptions and the job evaluation questionnaire, which were the source documents that WME as the job analysts used, were incomplete. So there was information lacking. And the appeal process enables the post holder, with the support of their line manager and head of department, to identify the gaps and to provide evidence in support of their appeal.
Thanks, Joy, and thanks for that question, Claire. Obviously, once we complete the process, Joy, for this meeting and maybe even for the entire authority, it would be useful to have some statistics on exactly how many staff were reviewed, and you know how many were increased, red circled, and so on. Just so that we can record that. So the statistics would be useful, very useful to have. And then, of course, we need to be mindful on the future and new roles that we may create, and how we ensure that we keep up to date with the process. So there, you know, it's taken 3 years to get here, but it's not a case. Sorry, Tegrin. 3 years, I was going to say you probably lost some more hair, but pardon me for saying that. But it is an ongoing process afterwards. Excuse me, how we integrate newly appointed people, if we're looking to promote, how we handle that. So that would be useful to have some guidance on that as well, please. I think also looking back, it would be useful to have some lessons learned. I'm sure there are quite a few, and I'll pause there because I know that Claire has, firstly Maureen and then Claire. Maureen.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Joy, at what stage do you invite the unions to come in, and do they come in? Because you didn't mention it in your process.
Thanks, Maureen. Unions have been included right from the outset, but I'll let Joy take you through that very important process. They've been very supportive, I understand. Joy.
Yeah, we've worked hand in glove with Unison, which is the recognised trade union, and in fact have been complemented by WME on the approach and the partnership working that we have with Unison. So we've included Unison in all the training that we've had from WME. Unison is represented on the appeals panel, and we have got a job evaluation procedure that will take the lead going forward, which will be in-house, and again that has trade union representation. So we work very closely with them and embrace that. I very much appreciate and strive to maintain a good working relationship with the recognised trade unions in all our dealings. So going forward, we've had a number of staff trained in job evaluation. They're already involved in moderation and appeal panels. Going forward, people services, or the person who holds my job, will be the authority lead on pay and grading and job evaluation, but there will be a panel very similar to a moderation process where all new posts prior to advertisement will be evaluated, and again it's about maintaining that. Secondly, people, if their jobs have fundamentally changed, they can request their post to be re-evaluated, and again that has to go through line management and head of department, so it's verified at every point. Similarly, if a new post is advertised and a member of staff thinks, well, that's a very similar job to the one I've got, but that's on a higher grade, then they can appeal. People can only appeal once in a 12-month period, and the intention is to diarise job evaluation panels periodically throughout the 12-month period. But the important thing is that we maintain our knowledge, skills and experience so that we can manage job evaluation internally. We will, of course, retain the services of WME on an ad hoc consultancy basis. You know, should the need arise where we feel that we need either some additional training for staff due to turnover, or people stepping down from that role, or indeed if we feel that we need to buy in their expertise in relation to a particular post or group of posts.
Thanks, Joy, for that very comprehensive answer. You've covered Maureen's question and also my earlier one about future. Maureen, did you want to come back on that at all?
Yes, please. I'd like to thank Joy for that really in-depth answer, but all I really wanted to know is, do the trade unions, are they allowed through the door at the different stages?
Yes, yeah, very much so. We welcome the involvement of our trade union representatives and all our staff representatives, and indeed there was an employee forum last week, I think, or the week before. So that was great. And I also understand, Joy, you mentioned to me when we had our pre-meeting that WME have submitted our scheme for an award.
Yeah, yes, they have, and that was for partnership working, because we're unusual to a certain extent as a public sector organisation, but also it was because it was this tripartite working that they wanted recognition, or they felt was worthy of recognition, in terms of submitting us as a business case, if you like, for an award, because of the way we worked with Unison and with them. So they've seen this pay and grading review as very much a tripartite approach, where we viewed each other as equal partners, really. So that, and as I said, in the past they have commented on how unusual we are to include Unison in the training, and you know, that we had 2 appeal panels yesterday, and the contribution from Unison was welcome, and you know, we work very closely, and for the majority of the time, we can reach an amicable, professional, reasoned resolution to all of the issues that arise in the course of employment and pay and grading.
Excellent, and thank you, Joy, and to everyone involved in the whole process, which has taken longer, but we've handled it in the right way, with compassion, communication, and I'm hopeful that the outcomes are acceptable to the majority. Claire, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. A few questions, I suppose. So in support of what you said about stats, Julie, I'd be interested to understand in relation to the red circle, specifically around by scale and by part-time, full-time, but that might come out in the lessons learned in the similar way. Appeals, Joy, when somebody appeals, do they have to have the support of their line manager or anybody else, or is it completely upon themselves to take forward that appeal?
The appeal, I would expect the appeal paperwork to be signed off and endorsed as a true reflection of the role and responsibilities for the post. What happens, how we've managed it, and this is how it'll be taken forward, which is unusual, both at appeal and going forward. They will have the opportunity to attend the panel. Mm-hmm. And provide oral evidence in support of their claim, in addition to the written records that they will have produced. And they are supported by they have the option of being supported by their line manager or trade union rep. And again, whilst we I'm trying to choose the right word. We check the paperwork. We check the appeal paperwork when we receive it to make sure that there's sufficient detail in there, if we've got any initial obvious glaring questions, so that we don't waste the panel's time. But equally, the panel, if in doubt, will ask for additional information. Sometimes when we adjourn to deliberate on the result of the evaluation, we will ask for supplement. We'll go back to the post holder, the line manager, for additional information. So we try to be as even-handed and as reasoned in our judgment, and the scheme itself isn't it isn't easy, in as much as sometimes there's only one word difference between the different level classifications, so it might be considerable data as opposed to some data, and it's making sure that we understand and have the information so that we can make that judgment. But it isn't it's dealt with in a very formal but informal way, if you like. So it's not like an interrogation. We've tried our best to put staff and line managers at their ease, and you know, give them the opportunity to present their evidence in a logical and reasoned way, really. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joy.
The only other last question for you is, I wondered if we knew what our union membership uptake was across the organisation. I did. It's difficult to know because sometimes people we can find out from payroll who pays the union subscriptions through that route, but of course staff generally choose, or some staff choose, to pay their subs direct to the union without involving payroll. I did ask within the last 12 months for a report. I think when there was balloting on strike action, but my recollection is that we're not heavily unionised. But we actively, we involve the trade union at every opportunity. So tomorrow at the all staff meeting, Unison will be there. We are very proud and open and transparent about the good working relationship that we have with them.
Thanks, Joy.
So it's up to members, it's up to staff really, whether they choose to join a union or not, of course.
And thanks very much for those questions, Claire. In my experience, all the trade union reps I've worked with, and I had 13 when I was in the airline and aircraft engineering, I wanted to ensure that the union representative wasn't just communicating with his or her own members, that it was more widespread than that. And indeed, I believe Unison are excellent at that. And of course, we do have the staff representatives as well. Maureen.
Thank you, Julie. I was going to say, if your membership is low, in a past life where I used to go around companies recruiting for the union, the better the staff were treated, the harder my job got. So it's a really good sign. I know people are better off in the. I'm going to do my spiel. You're better off in the union. You know, unity is strength, but it was always harder if the people were treated correctly, which you know. And I always wanted a good manager to leave, and a less good manager to. My figures would shoot up.
I do very much agree with you, Maureen. And from my perspective, I always used to find that a union representative had such greater awareness and was better, if I say better trained, had more access to more professional advice and training and such like. So that always boded well for conversations. But having said that, then our works committee meetings of non-unionised people were just as lively, so that was good. Tegwin, final word over to you on the pay and grading, I'm sure.
No, more on the unions actually. It was just in terms of just wider engagement there. Despite very good relationship, we've actually not got a written agreement with the unions, which is quite common. There, we've had discussions and we've asked for drafts, but you'll be aware that there's new legislation that came in last year on social partners. There, and we have agreed with Unison that we will be probably the first organisation to have an agreement with them under the new legislation. There, and I believe they and the TUC are drafting what they would like to see it, so we're waiting for them to come back. So we might have that as something for the future.
That's excellent news. Really pleased to hear that. Thank you, Tegwin. Anything else on the pay and grading section of Joy's report before we move swiftly on? Nope. No, sorry about this. Policy review. Just my question: are all the policies up to date now, Joy, or have you got a few stragglers?
No, we've still got some work to do. It's just that for a variety of reasons, not least staff turnover and absence, we haven't been able to focus on policies since Christmas, really. So at the moment, the main driver is the change in legislation that's coming in on the 6th of April, which is around the Neonatal Care Leave and Pay Act. So and what we've done, because again it was recognised that wherever possible to consolidate policies and rather than have a separate policy, so we've now incorporated a section into the maternity leave policy, which is probably a reasonable place for it to sit. It's quite a complicated piece of legislation. It's one of those pieces of legislation that I really hope we never have to use. But it's there should people find themselves in that unfortunate position where they would need to take time off because their baby's in special baby care. So yeah, it's as I said, it comes in on the 6th of April, but it is quite a complex piece of legislation.
Thanks, Joy, and I know that all members of this committee very much appreciate that your time has been taken up with the pay and regrading since you joined, and you have a team of part-timers, so that's also presented some challenges, but once the pay and regrading is complete and other aspects of that have, as it were, put to bed, then you'll be able to pick up with, as you said the other day, the day job, the normal day-to-day HR stuff. Okay, so thank you very much for that. I think the sickness, absence, training and volunteering information actually comes up and is easier to look at when we go through the monthly metrics reports that follow the tables, unless there's anything anybody else has to raise. No? So I'm turning to that now, which is page 15. So that's standard stuff on our headcount, joiners, leavers, length of service. Doesn't tend to change very much. So I'm going, unless somebody puts their hand up, I'll move to the next page. A couple of hands going up. Di and then Claire.
Yeah, thanks. I was just, where is it now? Oh, probably going for sickness data. Really pleasing, isn't it? The absence rates compared to last year. It was really nice. Thank you for putting my suggestion of the current year and the previous year, but that's really welcome, and excellent work by all and employees as well. Really pleased with that. And the other thing I was going to ask on the volunteer activity, logged hours by activity category. I'm presuming that there may not always be volunteer activity in, well, you've got admin, driving, Oriel Park. Are those opportunities perhaps not as often, they're not sort of provided or available compared to some of the other things? Is that the reason why they're low, or is it just because people don't want to do those things? Or is the opportunity of doing those things not as great as the other stuff? That's what I'm trying to get at. I think that makes sense, doesn't it?
It does make sense, Di. Thank you very much. Joy?
The admin, we've just appointed, if that's the right word, we've got one person, and this is a recent appointment. It's something that we've not offered before for office-based admin volunteering. So we have someone 4 hours a week, and it'll be short term, because again, the objective for this person is to get back into employment. He's relatively, he's of employment age. He's relatively young, mid-40s, had a period out of work, and is keen to get back into a structured routine, if you like, and to build up his confidence. And we've been able to provide him with 4 hours of work every week within People Services. So he's helping us with volunteering administration, really, but using his skills. So that's one of the reasons why it's low. And sometimes, and again, this is an area of activity that is in its infancy, and volunteering needs to be refreshed, reviewed. Key stakeholders need to be spoken to, and we need to look at it from its entirety, because the way we currently attract and recruit volunteering is quite labour intensive. So one of the advantages of volunteering sitting within People Services is that we can harmonise procedures and also have some resilience. So when I've recently appointed to the team, an HR officer reduced her hours, but I've backfilled not with another HR officer, but with a People Services assistant, with a view that gives me resilience across People Services, so that they can provide support to Caroline and her team, health and safety, and volunteering, as well as HR. So we're trying to build up some resilience, but again, so there is some work to be done. The depot, the remote volunteering, there is some done already, but again, we're looking at the recent draft strategy that's come out, which is suggesting that we should be looking at all organisations that engage with volunteers should be looking beyond their current offering, and trying to make sure that we're as inclusive as we can be. Recognising that people volunteer for different reasons, so there's the social and practical experiences that people welcome when they volunteer. You know, it goes back to the why do people volunteer. So that's one of the reasons why it's low. And I think the other thing is this piece of work is, for me anyway, is a bit in its infancy. I'm still trying to get a proper grasp of volunteering and all the challenges and opportunities it brings with it, really.
Thanks, Joy. I do appreciate that this is again another area that's new under your responsibility. I'll come back to Di because I think she might want to follow up on that, and then I'll go to Claire and to Maureen. But the gentleman you describe is just the sort of person that we want to help and encourage. However, we're mindful that there's sensitivity with regard to other staff and unions, that we shouldn't be seen to be bringing somebody in as a volunteer that is actually replacing or doing the work of what should be a full, full or part-time employee. So that's always a bit of a grey area. But over to you, Di.
Yeah, I suppose my question, thank you, Joy. I suppose my question is the reason why the practical tasks and the conservation and in and rights of way are greater is because more people prefer to do those at the moment, rather than perhaps the other things that haven't had many hours logged. So if that's how I'm reading it, is it that's the reason why that's greater and those others aren't? Because I know they're new. I know some of those are new. I get that, but as it currently stands at the moment, so that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, in part, but I think it's also because some of the volunteering is in relation to pathways or routes to recovery, where they actively work with volunteering, with volunteers as part of the remit. So this goes back to where volunteering sitting with engagement and inclusion, really. So some of that is historic, and it's because the green prescription and people's mental health and well-being, working with the archaeologists, etc. So I think it's because their volunteering opportunities have been established in the past. I don't think we've looked at admin roles previously per se. Picking up on your point, if I may, Julie, the work that's been done, we're very clear in an admin role that it's a task that can be picked up and put down, that is that person's. So it's not a case of they're doing for 4 hours a week, they're doing work that the rest of the week another member of the team who's a paid member of staff would do. So it's about identify. So some of the work they're doing is helping me as well in terms of some of my objectives in relation to work placements, working with schools, promoting the park to young people, either as a volunteer or a career opportunity further down the line. So it's about those sorts of tasks. So it's work that isn't somebody else's assigned role at all. It might just be making a list of contacts and telephone numbers and email addresses that I can pick up further on to progress an objective around those sorts of things. But I can assure members that the staff that we are not sort of saying, well, that's a cost saving. We can give them the work to do rather than employ somebody. So that is very clear in our approach to recruitment of people to volunteer.
Thanks, Joy. I felt sure that was the case, but I thought I'd call it out anyway. So I'm moving over to Claire and then to Maureen.
Thanks, Chair. Like Diane, very reassured by the absence rates year on year. That's really, really good news. I wondered if there was any narrative behind that to understand what's going on. And I was also hoping to see if there's any reflections on the turnover rate, why that's gone up.
Joy?
The absence rates, we had some instances last year of long-term sickness absence, and in some instances people were off for 12 months, which has a huge impact on the figures. I think we've also introduced, with our short-term sickness absence policy, we've introduced triggers, and also following up if someone is off sick. We follow up to make sure a return to work interview is done and captured. So some of it is about just being more vigilant, well, having a policy that is effective, that people understand and actually apply, and you know, and coupled with that, there's the restricted duties that we can, or light duties that we can engage, and there's no doubt that work. I mean, there's the whole debate about working when and well, but for where applicable, sometimes working from home for a short period of time while people get 100% recover from whatever they've been away with from work is helpful as well. So that's some of the narrative, but I think it's as I said, we were just we had 2 people who were off long-term sick last year, so that had an impact on the figures. But we do monitor this closely, and I think the other thing that is helpful is putting a cost on it, because that people can relate to a cost more rather than a percentage or how many work hours were lost. So it's yeah, I think that's the rub of that really. In terms of turnover, well, retirement and resignation. I think sometimes it's where we have seasonal workers and fixed term contracts. So we do monitor it, and obviously we do offer exit interviews where the take up isn't very good, but that's true. And I know we've had this conversation before that lots of organisations that offer exit interviews, the take up is often low. And again, that's something else that is part of the future work that we're going to do will be to look at that. But I don't think there's any. I'm not aware of any cause for concern in terms of, you know, people either finding the experience of working here, you know, it's not a good place to work either because of the culture, or the management style, or the job content.
Thanks, Joy. Claire, are you happy with that response? Good, that's excellent. I'll come on to Maureen now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Please don't all shoot me down straight away. What I'm going to say might be a bit hard to take, but there are a lot of people in prison, and so is there a lot of people coming out of prison, and sometimes they needn't have been there. But I'm sure, you know, as a way, I'm thinking of the Timpson.
Yeah.
You know, do we have any connections with ex-prisoner organisations to sort of give them, I know Timpson pays the people he works with, but to give them a sort of a way back into society and to build a CV? Do we give that opportunities to anyone?
I have tried to, I've made contact with the probation service, but not been successful. But again, that's one of my priorities when pay and grading is finished. Can I just say, for the record, I'm a great believer in giving people second chances. I think the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act has huge limitations on people. I sometimes think that if employers are too punitive and too tied to criminal records, that people pay the dues to society more than once. And I think, you know, good people sometimes do bad things, and I think that we condemn, if we don't give people second chances, then we condemn people and their families to a life of recidivism. I can't even say it, but you know what I'm trying to say. You know, they just repeat offenders, and it's a constant loop. So it's something that, and this isn't, you know, throughout my career, I've always cared greatly about giving people opportunities and second chances. So we have reached out to the probation service. I've not had anything come back yet, but equally another colleague, Michelle Webber, has got has given me a contact, and this is where people are doing unpaid sort of community service, if that's the right term, as part of their I was going to say crime, but the sentence, so they have to do unpaid work in the community. But yes, it is something that I care very much about, and would welcome the opportunity to put something in place. And I recognise that we can't always offer paid employment, but we can offer people the opportunity to build their self-respect, to get a bit of dignity back, to build their CV, and to just, you know, begin the long journey, because it often is a long journey back to employment.
Thanks, Joy. And Maureen, I didn't expect that anybody would shoot you down at all, because I think we all feel very, very much the same way. And Joy is really opening up our volunteer scheme. It's always, as Di remarked, been very traditional, the countryside, the paths, but there's all sorts of opportunities in an organisation like this to bring in people of all ages and all backgrounds, and improve their self-worth and their skill base and their experience. So I very much welcome that. I think Chris was first with his hand, and then to Claire. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, look, I agree with a lot of the comments that's been made there. I do feel that some people, yeah, rightly so, they might deserve a second chance. They're probably in the wrong place at the wrong time. But there are people out there who are not in a good place, and they don't. They continually want to continue live that lifestyle, and some people that I think, no matter how much education or try and help you try and give them, they will. I'm trying to pick my words correctly here. I think that some people cannot be
rehabilitated.
Yeah, look, you know, my brother's got a very, very difficult job with the police force, and you know, while he doesn't talk about his job, I know how stressful he gets with his job and with his role. And you know, there's lots of people I know who've probably done a few naughty things, and you know, they're paying for it, and they try and move on with their lives. But there are others that sort of it's very difficult to see where they will come back, and you know, that maybe doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and it's very hard to give them a second chance in the community. And I you know, I understand what Maureen's trying to say, and I understand what Joy's trying to say, but I think we've got to be quite I think we've got to take a lot of it in and just think about it realistically as well.
Thanks, Chris. We hear what you say, and we respect your views as always. Thank you. Claire.
Thanks, Joy. I was just going to ask, have we identified any fragile services? Because I'm conscious that we've not got a huge employment base, and we're going to have some areas where they're very highly skilled and maybe at retirement age. And I just wonder if we've got any of those fragile services and what we're doing to support them. And that might be for future reporting, but it was just a reflection when reading the report.
Thank you very much for that. I know that's something that Joy has been looking at, because clearly a number of our staff work out there. It's very manual, it's in all weathers, and as we all know, we get to a certain age and it's, you know, the muscles don't enable us to do the sort of work that perhaps we did many years ago. So yeah, if I can flag that up, Joy, for something, I know you and I have spoken about it. So if we can put that into the action of fragile services and how we might approach that, alternative employment, you know, the sooner we identify somebody that is likely to struggle in their role, the earlier we can help them with more skills and such like. Sorry, Claire, you want to
yeah, it's for me, it's about that succession planning really, Julie. So it's that corporate knowledge base and how you make sure that somebody's retirement, we don't end up with a blank piece of paper and nobody know what's going on. There's a lot of people in our organizations who are there for 20, 25, 30 years, and there's a lot in their heads. So it's those kind of departments, and it might be around engineering, infrastructure, you know, property, all of these kind of things. That was my thinking.
Yeah, very good point. And I can think of couple of officers who you know, their faces, their names bounce right out at me, that the skills and experience that they've accumulated over the years is somewhat irreplaceable in some respects, particularly with younger people not necessarily going into those careers for whatever reason. So yes, Joy, if you can give some thought to that. Oops, beg your pardon. Ooh, sorry, I've just rung that off. Sorry about that. Joy, I don't think you need to respond at this point unless you particularly want to, but it is obviously a piece of work for the future. But please respond if you feel you need to.
It is something that we're conscious of a number of levels, and one of the reasons why we're working so hard with colleges, universities and schools is to encourage younger people to think of the park as a future base. The difficulty that we have in some respects is that we are a small organisation and we have limited opportunities for non-operational, if you like, physical manual work. So the majority of our staff are engaged in that. And if we look at the age profiles, some of them, you know, are there's a proportion that are over 60. And I think that one of the things, and it's a very delicate, and I say that from somebody who's yeah, at that end of the age profile as well, it can be a very delicate subject for people to broach, but I think it's something that we need to incorporate into the annual wellbeing and development review. You know, a question around people's future plans, because I think some of the owners shouldn't just sit with us as the employer. If I'm of a certain, you know, more mature, as I advance in age, I must realise that there's going to come a point when I'm not going to be physically able to do my job. Now, the recent restructure of countryside management does provide some opportunities in there for people with the right knowledge, skills and experience and aptitude to perhaps move away from 100% operational role into a more office-based role or supervisory role where they're using their operational knowledge, but they're not operational 100% of the time. But realistically, those opportunities are few and far between. So I think it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? People come and they love their job, they love the park, they love working here, and they don't want to leave. But there is a downside to that. And I think, but again, it's about just making sure that we are mindful of that and that we do everything that we can to encourage young people to see us as an employer of choice, at the same time managing people who are coming towards the end of their careers. But it's not an easy, you know, I'd be a liar if I said it was an easy conundrum to solve. It's not.
Thanks very much, Joy. And thanks for that question, Claire. Di.
Yeah, it's when I had my interview with Wales Audit a few weeks ago, and they said what was the biggest risks for the authority, and I actually said succession planning, because somebody who, you know, as I work at home on the farm, practical, I can see that for me, and that I see that in parks as well. So I think that is something that we need to definitely keep an eye on for the future. And go on the risk register personally, and what we can do about it. But also on the positive note, I am going to Greenhill. No, I'm not going to Greenhill. I'm going to Tenby tomorrow for the Greenhill students for the business breakfast, so they can come and see what we do here, and I can give them some stuff and explain and try and encourage. So I think that's what we can do to mitigate the problem that we all face, I think, don't we, with staff. So hopefully that's say positive as well as, you know, I think it's on the radar about succession in a wider context as well. So not just in this committee, but for me as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Di. And I'm sure Joy and HR will be able to provide you with some literature for your visit tomorrow, or you'll be requesting and picking that up. So that's excellent. Just one final thing from me, and it follows on from Di's question at a previous meeting of being able to compare the statistics on sickness absence with previous months and years. And now, Joy, that we've got a very comprehensive and informative suite of metrics, there are a number on here that lend themselves to some comparison because one of the struggles I have when you send me the advance copy, I dig out the previous month and the one before that to see what the trends are, things like Welsh language skills, turnover, and so on. Not all of them, but just wanted to flag that up with you, because this committee is really all about monitoring trends and identifying trends, hopefully going in the right direction, but sometimes not always, just as Claire picked up earlier when she contrasted a number of statistics with the turnover. So it's nice to make those linkages and see historically how we're progressing. And I know the range of metrics is something that you've developed since you've come on board, so it will take a while before we get a whole year's worth, for instance. But I just leave that to you, and I'm happy to discuss that with you offline on how we can make that more informative. So it's been a very good meeting. Are there any more questions, comments from members? Well, can I just thank everybody on this committee? I think I was instrumental many years ago, Caroline, in creating an HR committee, or whatever we called it back then, because I don't think we had one. And unless there's a special need for a special meeting, I think this is my last one before I bow out at the end of May. So under the banner of member services, I just wanted to make a plea, because if you look at all the chairs of the committees, we've got myself, Rachel on audit, which is a really challenging committee, and Rosie on ops review. Now we all finish, Rachel and I finish at the end of May and Rosie at the end of December. So I really need to make a plea for members to think of, I have to say, particularly elected members, to think of stepping up, putting their names forward at the AGM. And sorry, I forgot to mention Madeline on our DM committee, again another Welsh Government member. And you know, it's been that way. Actually, we're all females as well, which is lots of girl power there, but it would be good to see some chaps and some elected members putting their names forward for the future. And you know, it's not for debating now, it's something that Di and I have discussed and that we're very mindful of. But I've really enjoyed chairing this committee, and I'd like just to thank everybody that's been involved, and in particular the officers for supporting me, and for Joy as well, because we do speak quite often in between meetings on the various challenges that you're facing, and I've always felt it flattered that you are seeking my advice, picking my brains. So thank you very much for that. Di?
And I just want to say a huge thank you to you as well. You bring huge expertise and advice and guidance that probably the majority of us have never had. I've learned so much from you on this committee and other committees as well. And I know we talk regularly, but I just want to thank you for all the support that you've given Pembrokeshire Coast National Park and the members. And hopefully we've trained up enough so that you won't have any worries about us in the future, that we will continue your good work and make the park you know, the best that we can. And I would think, I always say my mantra is you always want to leave it better than you found it, and I suspect I think everybody would agree with me that certainly on this committee you've done that. So well done, and thank you very much for your work.
Oh, bless you. Thank you very much, Di. Thanks. Anyway, I shall really miss it, but there we go. So with that, and I'll close the meeting now, and thank you all for your attendance and your really excellent contribution. And enjoy the rest of the sunny weather.
Thank you, Julie.
Take care, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, hello there.